back to Tears for Fears. I'm your host, Megan Shoup. You can follow me on Twitter at Megs08DFS. And before we jump into Week 9 tiers, I need you to do 3 things for me. 1, be sure to like this video. 2, of course, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network. And 3, of course, check out Run the Sims. Run the Sims has all sorts of tools to help you this daily fantasy season, and especially in tiers. So with that, let's go find our core plays tier by tier. First, as always, I think it's important to take a look back before we take a look ahead. And this is my Week 8 lineup, and it's in the bootleg contest, which is obviously a smaller field contest, and I finished in 16th place, which is great. But as you can see, there were 2 plays that really hurt this lineup. It was Herbert in tier 5 and Moore in tier 6. And the point I'm trying to make here is in tiers, you actually don't need to be perfect, especially in the smaller field contests. But if your floor plays are vastly different from what are some of the higher scoring plays, then that's going to really take a very good lineup or a lineup that has legs to finish in the top 1% or in the top few places, and it's going to make it an average lineup. As you can see, Tannehill scored about, I think, 7 or 8 more points, and Henderson scored a lot more points than DJ Moore in tier 6. So that's just to show, yes, we are always chasing the ceiling, but we do want to watch for the floor too. That floor-ceiling combo is something we want to keep in mind in tiers, and that's just one thing I wanted to bring up before we jump into Week 9. In Tier 1, we have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Kyler Murray. And this one's pretty easy for me. I'm going to fade Murray here. With his injury, it makes me nervous, and he really hasn't been running as much lately. And so my core plays are going to be Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, Mahomes has not looked very Mahomes-like lately, but he will still be in my core plays. But I'm really trying to decide between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over to Run the Sims, and this is their rangefinder tool. If you put both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in, you can see it is incredibly close. I mean, 50.8 to 49.2. So it's basically is a toss-up, and honestly, that's how I feel it is too. So I'll have a lot of exposure to both. But I'm going to lean to Josh Allen in this tier. I'm going to lean to the guy who has the easier matchup. So Josh Allen is my tier 1 play. In Tier 2, we have Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, Austin Eckler, Devontae Adams, and Alvin Kamara. And Alvin Kamara is probably the only player I'm going to fade or have very little exposure to in this tier. And yes, that is always scary, but a few things. If he's getting less targets, if Mark Ingram's cutting into his workload even just a little bit, and or if Taysom Hill is kind of vulturing him at the goal line, those are all things that make it a little harder for him to hit his ceiling. I originally, of course, loved Devontae Adams this week. Still will play him, but like him a little less without Aaron Rodgers. Deebo Samuel, will have exposure to. Love his target share, but if Kittle's coming back, that might kind of cut into that. So my favorite plays are either Tyreek Hill and Austin Eckler. So I'm going to go back over to the rangefinder on Run the Sims. I plugged it in, and yet again, it's very close, 50 to 49, leaning towards Eckler. Listen, you can run all over the Eagles, and running backs can also get pass work against the Eagles. So I love Austin Eckler in this spot. And so Austin Eckler is my Tier 2 play. In Tier 3, we have Jamar Chase, Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, and Dalvin Cook. And the only player I'm considering fading here is Cook. Listen, it's hard to run against the Ravens, and Cook has not been getting the targets lately, so that makes it harder to hit his ceiling. So my core plays are Chase, Jones, Jefferson, and Diggs. And I love all 4 of those plays, and I'm going to rotate through all of them and get exposure to all 4 of those guys. But my 2 favorites are probably Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. They both have great matchups. Listen, wide receiver ones go nuts against Cleveland. So Chase is in an amazing spot here. And the Ravens do give up big plays to receivers. So Justin Jefferson's in a great spot. I'm really going back and forth on this one, but as the past couple of weeks, I'm going to go ahead and play Jamar Chase as my Tier 3 play. In Tier 4, we have CeeDee Lamb, Ezekiel Elliott, Mike Williams, Joe Mixon, Travis Kelce, and DeAndre Hopkins. And right off the bat, you can see we're dealing with 2 injuries with Lamb and Hopkins. So that kind of scares me off both of them. And in the case of Mike Williams and Joe Mixon, both don't have great matchups respectively. So I may have a little exposure to those guys, but my core plays are really Ezekiel Elliott and Travis Kelce. So I'm going to head back over to the rangefinder tool and Run the Sims. And as you can see, their win rate is very close, with Elliott being slightly higher. So Ezekiel Elliott is my tier 4 play. In tier 5, we have Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins. We no longer have Aaron Rodgers and Tua Tagovailoa. And my fades are pretty scary in Hurts and Herbert in the same game. But here's why. Both teams will allow you to run on them, but are tougher against the pass. And in the case with Hurts, he's not efficient in the passing game, period. So now he's as an even more difficult matchup. That is going to make him getting there with passing even more difficult, harder to hit the ceiling. He's going to have to rely on rushing, which he can get there with rushing, but you're going to need 2 touchdowns and him to kind of get those garbage time yards and rushing touchdowns. So that's why I really don't trust Hurts this week to hit his ceiling. So my favorite plays are Burrow, Tua, and Cousins. I think all are in great spots to hit their ceiling. But Burrow is my favorite play because, again, Cleveland is tough to run on, but you can pass on them. And so Burrow is my tier 5 play. In tier 6, we have Cordarrelle Patterson, Adam Thielen, Amari Cooper, Nick Chubb, Keenan Allen, and Brandon Cooks. And my core plays for this tier are Thielen, Chubb, Allen, and Cooks. With Chubb, the lack of receiving work makes me a little nervous, but I do think he'll get more volume this week and definitely want him in my rotation. Brandon Cooks has Tyrod Taylor back, so I like him in my rotation. But my 2 favorite plays are Adam Thielen and Keenan Allen. I think both are potentially in great PPR spots where they can rack up the catches and points that way. But also if they get that 100-yard bonus and or touchdown, then you're going to be the smash play in this tier. So those are my 2 favorite plays, though I will rotate through all 4. But I'm going to go with Thielen here. I think he's a little safer. I talked earlier about doing that combination of that floor safety but ceiling potential, and I like Thielen here for that. So Adam Thielen is my tier 6 play. In tier 7, we have Marquise Brown, James Robinson, Cortland Sutton, Darren Waller, Cole Beasley, T. Higgins, Chuba Hubbard, and Randall Cobb. And for this tier, my core plays are Brown, Sutton, Waller, Beasley, and Higgins. Of course, be sure to pay attention to practice and injury reports for the Bills because Cole Beasley has not practiced yet this week at this point. So I really like all those guys I just mentioned. I'm going to rotate through them, but my favorite one is Marquise Brown. While the Vikings pass defense has been very efficient this year, they do still give up some big chunk plays. And who can have those big chunk plays? Marquise Brown. He also offers that kind of floor ceiling combination where I still think he's going to have a safe floor in this tier and not kill you even if he doesn't hit his ceiling, but he does have that potential for a ceiling. So Marquise Brown is my tier 7 play. And in tier 8, we have Mark Andrews, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Waddle, Emmanuel Sanders, Myles Gaskin, James Conner, Devonta Smith, and Kenneth Gainwell. And I have this tier narrowed down to just a couple core plays. And you have to like them all Miami and Buffalo players, right? So my core plays are Waddle, Sanders, and Gaskin. And I'll be rotating through all those. But Waddle is my favorite play in this tier. I mean, the targets last week were insane, but he was playing a very tough matchup in the Bills. Now against the Texans, I think he could absolutely hit a ceiling. So Jalen Waddle is my tier 8 play. All right, that'll do it for this week's Tears for Fears. Thank you guys so much for joining me. What do you guys think of my lineup? Let me know in the comments section and let me know your core plays, fades, and game stacks you're interested in. But before you get out of here, be sure to like this episode. Of course, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network and check out Run the Sims to help you make some great tiers lineups. So now let's go make some money and I'll meet you back here next week.